Okay, well, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you here with us. Thanks for taking time out of your schedules to be here for the Astrobiology Science Communication Guild kickoff for 2023. I am going to share our intro presentation here. And then Hillary, are you able to admit guests or Daniela or anyone? Cool, thank you, because they keep popping up. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is our first meeting of the year. I know a lot of you are either members of the original guild from back when we started in 2021, or I'm happy to see some faces I know. But for those of you who don't know me, I am Svetlana Shkolyar. I am a visiting research assistant scientist at University of Maryland, College Park, but I am physically located at NASA Goddard. Well, at least my office is at NASA Goddard in Greenbelt, Maryland. I'm also affiliated with Blue Marble, so I know we're going to have a lot of representation from the BMSIS community here as well, so that's great. To give you sort of an introduction to the history and the vision of the Guild, I'm actually not going to do it. I'm going to pass the mic over to Daniela Scalise, who was our founding member back in 2021. So Daniela, take it away and please share.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Svet. And a very huge, giant, warm welcome to all of you. Many of you were present at the beginning of the Guild. My goodness, I think it's almost 2 years ago. But for those of you who are brand new or who kind of trailed in that time between, welcome to what we hope is a very fulfilling and rewarding and confidence building and community building experience for you. Our original vision for the Guild very much holds to today, and I'm very excited that Svet has agreed to kind of take over the leadership of things. So thank you, Svet. I'm very happy to see this moving forward under your wise direction. But indeed, the Guild is not envisioned as something that one person directs. It is envisioned as something that we as a community build together and co-create together. The idea very much was to, and we're going to go through the sort of objectives together in a minute, but the idea was to bring everyone together, actually to continue to bring everyone together around, in the astrobiology community, around science communication. For those of you who kind of go way back with all of this, you probably remember FameLab, which is an initiative we did easily 10 years ago now, if not a little bit more. So, which was a wonderful thing for everyone involved. It was really a science communication skills building exercise, masquerading as an American Idol style sort of reality TV show competition. And it was loads of fun. And it was all, in service to you, the early career astrobiology community. And it really brought us together as a scientific community around this value of communicating what we do. One of my early mentors at NASA a couple decades ago used to say, science isn't done until it's shared. And we know that you as the astrobiology community hold that value deep within your hearts. And we want to continue to support you to do that as the astrobiology program, supporting you to do that now that FameLab has come and gone. And indeed, things at NASA have changed too, with respect to doing communications, outreach, education. We as the astrobiology program used to be able to provide you direct funding and opportunities and involvement to engage with us as the program in astrobiology education. Things have shifted a little bit. We may hear a little bit about that today. But we embrace these new changes, and we want to continue to provide you with those opportunities through our partners, one of which you're going to hear from today in the NASA SciAct community. But again, our mission, our vision is to build on all the wonderful things we've done in the past to build community around science communications for astrobiology and keep us all together. We envision, as Svet is probably going to talk about, continuing with monthly-ish as best we can meetings to bring you together to talk about what's going on in your lives, to bring you opportunities to get involved in communications and education in astrobiology, and just be on this evolving journey together with you. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you, Svet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was one question in the chat. Priya asked,
sure.
how are you defining early career? A la NASA, first 10 years post-terminal, or are you just having
Priya.
self-definition?
I like self-definition. Definitely when we were actively involved in doing Fame Lab, which was really fun, it was definitely focused and had sort of semi-hard boundaries around, what early career meant, X number of years post-terminal degree, et cetera, graduate students, postdocs, and that sort of thing. But this is a little bit looser. It's actually a lot looser. So we welcome anyone who identifies themselves as an astrobiologist and an astrobiologist science communicator, someone who wants to be in community around what that is and what that needs to be. So all are welcome. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for that question, Priya. And thank you for that great intro, Daniela. So this is why we are now back as version 2.0. And with that, let's go over a couple of sort of introductory goals and ideas that I'd like to share with you. As Daniela mentioned, community is very important to us. One of our goals is to build community around science communication, around astrobiology science communication, and find ways to co-invent, co-create these opportunities for science communication with you and for you. And so part of this is kind of encapsulated by the idea of a community of practice. And this is something that is not a revolutionary or new idea, but it was certainly new to me when I learned about it very recently. And if you look at the way communities of practice are represented in the literature, and even like in a quick Google search, you'll see it's often these three concepts represented by like puzzle pieces, which all kind of work together. And I've sort of tried to depict it here in the context of our community. What this really means is we cultivate connections and relationships. We believe that we're better together. We're better as a community. We bring support and resources to each other, allow for exchange of knowledge, allow for exchange of common interests, common goals. We share those, what they call domains of shared interest. And we develop a shared repertoire of resources between us and the community. And something interesting that I learned that actually organizations who adopt communities of practice often find a lot of organizational value in this idea, in that members tend to stay within that organization longer. There's better retention and more innovation comes out of these sorts of communities. So that's really something we hope to embrace within this guild. And part of that theme is serving you in your journey as evolving science communicators. So the first part of really understanding how to best serve you all is a needs assessment survey. And I'm going to actually call on Hillary Davis to talk about this a little bit. Hillary is one of our team members. She's an evaluator with Technology for Learning Consortium. Hillary, I'm going to pass the mic over to you so you can talk a little bit about this.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see so many familiar faces. I've been more of a lurker in the Guild over the past couple of years, but I've worked with many of you on other astrobiology projects. So I'm glad to see you here as part of this community. And part of what we'll do more of, as Svet said, going forward is really checking in with you very directly with individual things like this needs assessment. And that's to help shape the program, to make sure it's on track for what you need and what you want. And then we'll do some things like annual surveys, like what did you use? So we can really maybe plot some of the effects over time. Stephen, you asked a question in the chat and I answered it. So, all right. And then Daniela answered about FameLab. I didn't do that evaluation, so I wasn't aware of the in-depth one. Daniela, I certainly went to them. So if you could take a minute and use your QR code reader and do this needs assessment, that'll really help us going forward in planning. And then we'll have some polls after each presentation.
And if you can't access this via QR code on your phone, after I stop my screen share view, I'll post the links to all the surveys that we've mentioned today in the chat. So you'll have direct links. Okay, thank you, Hillary. Yeah, and so please take a moment, if not now, then after the presentation, to fill out that survey. I also want to just briefly cover the objectives of the Guild going forward. We have three main objectives. The first one is that you will contribute your expertise as astrobiology science, astrobiology subject matter experts, to both NASA programs that we've partnered with and external programs, external science communications programs. And will be regularly, the idea is that we want to bring you regular opportunities to do this, to use your subject matter expertise through a variety of ways. And we've partnered with one particular program called Science Activation, or SciAct. This is a NASA Science Mission Director and SMD program of basically teams of educators, loosely defined educators all over the country. They're involved with all sorts of projects from community college, working with community college instructors, to working at parks, which is, I'm referring to one of the groups that's going to talk today, or Earth to Sky, to working with neurodiverse learners, to working with amateur astronomy clubs. So a whole host of different types of teams that do public engagement, communication, outreach. And so we will be providing opportunities from science activation groups as well as other groups for you all. Guild members' science communication skills will be enhanced by participation in professional development. So we want to improve the tools in your toolkit on your journey as well-rounded researchers and science communicators. And we will be teaming up with science activation groups as well as other groups to be bringing you workshops within the, focusing on the ideals of DEA, reaching underserved populations in STEM, those sorts of topics, equitable engagement practices, those sorts of topics. So we hope to do that. And we also hope to we also would like for Guild members to be direct participants in the process of this community building, as we talked about, by receiving support for your own initiatives. So you will have opportunities to propose and present your own initiatives. And if you have ideas on that outside of meetings or outside of those specific windows, please let me know, and we'll work with you to move those ideas forward. And finally, I just want to put in a plug for filling out the team roster before we move on to our first group of speakers, who I'm very excited to hear about. As Hillary mentioned, we'd like to know who's in our community. We'd like to understand how our community is evolving and growing. And so for that reason, filling out the team roster is very important to us. So please take a moment to do so if you haven't already. And again, I'll post the link to this if you cannot access it through your QR code. Okay, so are there any quick questions on just this introductory portion before we move on to our first group of speakers? Yeah, Daniela.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for posting in the chat. The first QR code also took her to the roster. So I think we can work behind the scenes to make sure you get an actual link to the needs assessment survey as well as the roster. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, yeah, that's an error on my part. I will post the links in the chat. Thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. Okay, so I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen here because I would like to hand over the mic to our first group of speakers from the Science Activation Earth to Sky team, Geneviève de Messier and Chris White. So feel free to share and take it away. Geneviève and Chris.
Hi, everyone. We're so honored to be getting to talk to you today on your kickoff meeting. So let me go ahead and get my sharing started. Let's see. I think that's the right one. Can everyone see my slides now? Okay, great.
Yes.
Let me make sure I can pull up the chat too in case something comes up. So As Svet said, I'm Genevieve de Messier, and Chris White will also be presenting with us. We are both staff with the NASA Earth to Sky program. As Svet said, this is associated with the Science Activation Program. We're actually not one to help fulfill NASA's education programs. Instead, we receive most of our funding directly from NASA's Earth Science Division, with some of our funds coming from Science Activation to do our eclipse-related programming, and we can also with the other teams like this one to accomplish our goals. Earth to Sky has been around since about 2004, and Chris will be posting some links in the chat that you can follow to find out more. Earth to Sky has always been a partnership from the very beginning. It started as a partnership between NASA and the National Park Service, and then we included Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service a few years later. Now we've grown to also include a number of state and local land management organizations like state parks, as well as nonprofits, universities, tribes, and many other partners. The general idea of Earth to Sky is that when we bring together that big picture from using satellite data view that NASA has, that global perspective, when we bring that together with place-based experiences like you have in a park, that creates a really powerful opportunity for learning. That was what inspired Earth to Sky to be created. I was founded by by a space ranger who was detailed from the National Park Service to NASA, and it is what continues to inspire us today. So our target audience in Earth to Sky are park rangers who are doing communication work, and many of those folks are called interpreters. So I just want to get a little show of hands here, or you can use I think there's a thumbs up reaction that you can use. Who here has heard of interpretation in that context, as opposed to like interpreting languages? Who here has heard of interpreters like park rangers, naturalists? Okay, so not very many of you, right? Some of you have. That's great. And I didn't either before I started this job, even though I was doing some similar work. So we'll be hearing a little bit more about what interpretation means from Chris, who is trained as an interpreter. And so she'll be telling you more about what we mean when we say interpretation. But that is our target audience. Park rangers who are working in these protected places to do communication with their audiences, and also other folks in similar situations, people working at nature centers, people doing any kind of place-based education, which is focused on helping people develop a connection and a relationship to the place around them. Most of our work is to help folks develop their climate communication skills, but we also are helping people get ready for the upcoming solar eclipses. Our community is made up, Svet already did a great introduction of the importance of community of practice. Earth to Sky is also a community of practice. Of course, it includes interpreters, park rangers, and other similar folks, but experts are also an incredibly important part of our community of practice. You are very welcome to join the Earth to Sky community. The link is in the chat, and this is we hope that not only would you be able to help other folks in the community benefit from your expertise, but that you'd also learn quite a lot from the folks in the community. That's what characterizes Earth to Sky, is a collegial give and take of expertise. Let's see if I can. Okay, so here are a couple of visuals to illustrate what Earth to Sky mostly does, just so you can get a sense of, if you are helping Earth to Sky, what kind of contexts you might be helping in. So the main thing we're doing is helping park rangers and other interpreters develop their climate science and their solar eclipse programs. And I'm going to tell you about the climate part, and then Chris is going to tell you about the eclipse part. So one of the primary ways that we achieve our goals of helping park rangers work on their climate interpretation skills is by providing multi-day in-person climate communication courses for park rangers and other interpreters. We've developed a training methodology that's been tested by evaluation over the years. It includes features like coaching, an authentic task where the participants are working on a plan that they'll implement at their own site, plenty of time during the course for them to work on that, a resource-rich environment where they have access to experts like you and other like NASA data sets and NASA outreach programs, as well as the National Park Service's latest interpretation technique and more. So those are the kinds of things we bring together in our courses. We like to really connect to the place. We have a field trip where they get to see climate impacts playing out in that place, and an example of how a park ranger might do an interpretation program for their audiences about those impacts to help inspire the folks in the audience. So that's the main thing that Earth to Sky offers for climate training, but we also have online programs, which I'll tell you about soon. And now I want to turn it over to Chris so she can tell you about the Eclipse part.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris White. I'm the Eclipse Coordinator with Earth to Sky Interagency Partnership. And yeah, we are helping connect interpreters and informal educators with the upcoming, with NASA science resources and projects for the upcoming solar eclipses on October 14th, 2023 and April 8th, 2024. We are producing a set of mini webinars. These are short, within a half-hour webinars for interpreters to watch about eclipse science, anything to do with the upcoming eclipses, how to prepare, projects that can be involved with, any resources they might need or want. And those mini webinars happen at least once a month, right now twice a month. And individual outreach, I've been doing a lot of individual outreach to communities that are in the paths of totality, and also to the parks and public lands in those areas to try to help prepare them for what's coming. These outreach efforts are designed to ensure that the interpreters and informal educators have access and knowledge of the vast array of information and products available through NASA. Will you advance the slide for me, Genevieve? All right. While visiting a national park, a museum, or a refuge, visitors often turn to park rangers or docents to give them expert advice. They have a high level of trust that they know the best way for visitors to engage with the resources found within the parks or museums or refuge. Interpreters are skilled at connecting a variety of audiences to the resources that surround them and to the global stories found beyond that relate directly to the visitor. Interpreters develop a story piece by piece to slowly move the engaged visitor towards ideas that may be difficult to approach directly. Okay, next slide. All right, so we have a little interpretive activity for you all. This is an I-beam from a building. And so one of the techniques we use in interpretation is to teach, to connect with people on different levels. So the first level is to think about, if you want to hit it one more time, the tangibles that you find at a site. So these are actually things that can be perceived by the senses. So when you look at that I-beam, if anyone's willing to throw some ideas in the chat of actual tangible way you can engage with the I-beam. So like, what are some of its tangible properties? Texture, okay, rusty. Color, great. Yeah, it's all the things you can see, feel, hear, sharpness, the edges. Yep. Size and shape, great. All right, Genevieve, will you hit it one more time? So it starts to get a little bit different when you start going into intangibles, and that's an abstract quality or attribute that's given to that same thing, such as goodwill, self-confidence. Anyone want to try their hand at some intangibles for this I-beam? Age or history, great. Yeah. Story. You can sort of see some of these. Heft. I think I'm way behind the meeting. Okay. Do you want to hit one more time? So as interpreters, the intangibles that we really like to hit are the universal concepts. So this is something that everyone on Earth can relate to, regardless of where they live, what their economic standing is, or any other aspect. Do you want to advance to the next slide? Yeah, cultural and religious perspectives. So now this is the full picture of this I-beam. The best way to draw universal concepts out is to tell you that this I-beam is from the 9/11 World Trade Center wreckage. So knowing that, what are the ideas that you think anyone on Earth could understand about this I-beam now? Its history, its standing, any universal concepts that you guys can throw out for that. Oh, an I-beam is actually a structural beam that holds the building together. Oh, thanks, Genevieve. Grief, that's a fantastic one. I think that's pretty accurate that anybody on Earth could understand grief and loss. All right, do you want to forward one more? So these are some of the ones we came up with. You have disaster, you have death, destruction, chaos. And on the flip side of that, in the recovery, you have tenacity, you have resilience, you have strength, and you have resolve. These are all ideas that pretty much anyone on Earth can understand. And when you can bring in those universal concepts to whatever it is that you're teaching interpreters, there's a deeper connection, to anyone that visits an interpretive site. There's a deeper connection to the story that you're trying to convey. Okay, one more. Is this back to you, Genevieve?
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that. So as to help you understand a little bit about how interpreters work, like all these layers of meaning that they can help visitors navigate. I know it's a little bit of a heavy topic, a little bit of a heavy example, but so is much of what we talk about at Earth to Sky. We're talking about climate change. So that's also a big disaster, bringing up some really difficult universals for interpreters to be working with their audiences, but also aspects of resilience and empowerment and community in tackling these challenges. The eclipses are a more cheerful topic, hopefully for most folks. And we also want people to help connect to universals in those as well. So interpreters are not generally trying to get people to learn facts or gain skills the way that an educator might. Interpreters are trying to help people connect to meaning. And so that's what we do at Earth to Sky, is help those interpreters get the support from NASA and our other partners so that they can use the latest, most nuanced science, and so they can feel supported by a community of others as they're embarking in this work. So in addition to the training that we talked about earlier, some of the ways that we engage with that is to have monthly events. And this is where we would love to have you join us. You can attend the events, and we also might ask you to help as presenters too, as subject matter experts who can help bring some really helpful information to these interpreters to help empower them in this work. So there are 3 kinds of events that we're currently running. So Climate Conversations is once per month. We're currently running that on first Thursdays of the month. This is a informal, casual gathering where interpreters and like minds in the community can come together and just talk about one of the issues that's at the forefront of climate interpretation, and just get the support they need and the sense of community that they need while discussing this. For example, one recent topic that we talked about was what we call climate microdosing, which is maybe a park ranger is not going to develop a whole program, like a whole exhibit or a whole new campfire talk or whatever it is about climate. Maybe they'd rather add a stop to their audio tour, or weave a thread about climate science into their trail walk. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be a big monolithic program. Instead, a lot of interpreters are finding it's productive to just sort of slip it in everywhere, because climate is affecting so much of the work that interpreters are talking about, like whether it's the infrastructure changes that visitors are seeing at the park, or whether it's something to do with the weather conditions, like why visitors can't take that hike that they wanted to because of the extreme heat, things like that. Meanwhile, Climate in Your Pocket is, we're currently having that on 3rd Fridays. Our next one is this coming Friday. And this is a mini webinar where we feature a little nugget, like a tool that interpreters can walk away empowered to use. This might be a bit of the latest science. So you might think about some science that you have that you wish that park rangers knew about. And that might be a really great tool for them to be empowered with. Or maybe it's one of the data access tools, like you can see on My NASA Data. Or maybe it's a outreach program that they can collaborate with. There's a bunch of different topics that we cover. So again, you're so welcome to join, and we may try to tap you as presenters for this series. And then, as Chris mentioned, we are also running the Interpreting Eclipses series that is on Mondays, currently twice per month. And so that is to help interpreters get ready for the upcoming solar eclipses in October, this coming October 14th and April 8th, 2024. So, sorry, what is it doing? It's doing something to me. Hang on. Okay. There we go. So how you can help. If you're interested in helping this community, there are a few ways that you can help. One of them is to join. Priya, thanks. She just put that link in the chat for everyone. So you can become part of the community. Please put in a bio so that community members know the kind of help that they can ask you for. And it also helps to put yourself on the map so people can see who's close to them. Now, we wanted to be a little more specific about the help we're asking for in presenting for these. So in terms of the Climate in Your Pocket mini webinars, if you're interested in being a presenter, we had a couple of ideas for topics that you all as experts might be able to help us contribute to. One of them might be planetary analog research that you're doing, which interpreters could help connect to climate science at their sites. So if you are, for example, doing work in the Southwest related to Mars or Venus or the moon or any of these things, but especially for the planets where there is changing climate and it can be connected to the changing climate on Earth, we would love to talk to you about how you could present to our audience. We also were intrigued at the idea of bringing together a panel of experts who could talk with our audience just about the search for life, because that also connects to changing climate on Earth. And one thing that I think interpreters might be really interested to talk about with all of you is how it might change society here on Earth if we discover life elsewhere. I know my world will be rocked, whether it's intelligent life or some kind of microbial scum. When that happens, we'll be changed forever. How will that change our society? How can interpreters get ready for that day? Because I feel like that day could be coming relatively soon, and that's the work that many of you are doing. So it might be a good way for us to help interpreters and park rangers prepare for all of that. So if you'd like to be a subject matter expert for one of these kinds of presentations, or something else that I haven't thought of that you'd like to suggest, please go ahead and drop me a line. So that just put my contact in the chat. Meanwhile, Chris, do you want to talk about your ask?
Yeah, sure. As part of the Interpretive Eclipses mini webinars, we would really like to have some subject matter experts that can talk about, the effect of a star on the life of a planet nearby, that can really, really go deep into that connection, how the energy of the star is actually what fuels life on Earth. In the case, since that is the only place we know life definitely exists, really. And so that's the ask for me. And those webinars are no more than a half hour, 15 minutes of that time is your presentation. And the other 15 minutes is for question and answer and interpretive connections to the topic that's being discussed. That, or if you want to help with an eclipse event, I'm connected with people all over the United States. And so if you let me know where you're going to be going for the solar eclipses, I can help connect you with people who are working on events in those areas that would love to have a subject matter expert with your skill set. And so that's pretty much what I'm asking for.
And speaking of which, I know some of you are traveling some really cool places to do your research. So if you're in the situation of you're traveling to a place to do your astrobiology research or your other research, and maybe it's a park, or maybe it's close to a park, or to another protected place. How terrific would it be if you got to get together with the interpreters at that site and give them a little presentation so they know the cool research that you're doing there and they can share it with the visitors. So if you're interested in being connected to those folks, we can help. We regard ourselves as connective tissue. We can't guarantee a connection, but we've had some really cool ones so far. I'm going to give you an example in just a moment. So don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, I've got this upcoming trip to do some field work. I'd love to chat with the folks. You never know. Sometimes they're like, oh, and we'll also provide you some park housing while you're there. There's been some pretty nice connections when you make those kinds of friendships with the interpreters who work there. So I just want to give you a little example of how impactful it can be when we bring together subject matter experts like NASA climate scientists, or like you as astrobiologists, and these interpreters like park rangers. And it can be not just productive for the interpreters, but productive for you as scientists. So here's an article which was published just last year by the NASA's Landsat science team. So you can just search for it, or you can drop a link in the chat. It's called The Satellite Stewards of Glacier Bay. And it tells the story of the interpreters at Glacier Bay National Park who reached out to us here at Earth to Sky. And they said, we're having trouble because we know the glaciers in this park are changing rapidly, but we can't see the full extent of the change from where we are down on the shore, and we know it's a more nuanced story than we currently are seeing. Can you help us? So we connect them to a glaciologist who works at NASA Goddard, and he prepared a Landsat image series for them and annotated it. He pointed out things like how the glaciers are not just retreating, but they're also shrinking in terms of volume, which means that they're not buttressing the mountains the way that they were before. So you get increased landslides onto the glaciers, which affects the melt rate, which also affects the sedimentation you get washing out into the bay, all kinds of interesting connections. So it really, sorry, again, it just, see if I can get this to work. So here's a tweet thread about the same topic, and in the words of one of the interpreters, getting this access to this information and building this relationship with the glaciologist really rocked the world. It really changed how they do interpretation at the park and the kinds of programs that they go into the cruise ships to deliver. But that's not all, because the glaciologist, whose name is Christopher Schumann, when he went to the American Geophysical Union conference, he gave a presentation, like a poster on his research, but he also noted how he was engaged in this collaboration and how his part in this collaboration helped him learn some new things and pursue new avenues of research. So the expertise flow and the learning really go both ways, and it can be a really productive relationship. We would love to have more examples like this to show our community, drawing from astrobiology as well. So if you think that you want to be in this kind of story, please be in touch with us. And I think that might be my last slide. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here. And I think we are just about at time. But Svet, do we have time to take a few questions?
Actually, what I'd like to do is launch the poll. And maybe while folks are doing that 2-minute poll, Hillary, what do you think? We can maybe have time for a quick. I have been watching the chat, though, and you all are asking really great questions. And I'm seeing some really great comments already in the chat. So this is a quick 2-3 question poll just to gauge your interest in this opportunity. And while we allow you a few minutes to respond, yeah, let's go ahead and take one super quick question if anyone wants to ask anything.
I guess if everyone's quiet, a la Zoom, the way things are these days, I'm just going to be the person who's going to speak. I have a quick question. So you're talking about climate change and you're talking about the environment. Do you have anything that you require or request of the people participating? For example, green credentials, such as, how's your house powered? Do you use a gasaholic car, or do you use an EV, or do you use public transportation? Do you travel all over the world? How do you offset your carbon? Do you really know that's being offset? Those kind of, because NASA sends off beautiful rockets, but I don't know who's offsetting that carbon footprint, or the SpaceX or whatever, 30 times more powerful than any rocket ever launched. I love Danny's background with the trees, and I really think that if we're doing climate change, climate change can be good or bad, right? So if we're talking about preventing bad climate change, are you making any, or are you asking for anything in terms of credentials for that?
So these are all such great topics to bring up, Priya. In what context are you asking? Like,
for the people who are asking to talk about climate change. So because I have been around, as you can tell from my gray hair, a little while, and there are wonderful groups and initiatives, and then you see them jet setting to these meetings. Jet setting is the key word here. Or, they come in their Hummer, and then they come in and, attend an environmental protest. I think that there's got to be some accountability. And this goes all the way up to John Kerry. I'm not even, who accepted the oil guy to run COP, the next COP. I think we need to be really careful about who goes out there and talks, in my biased opinion, who goes and talks and speaks for the planet or for the climate issues. So just wondering if you, as a group, sort of do screening for that before you do, because there's a lot of infiltration. I don't know if you saw in the latest Guardian about people moving into these environmental movements who are just basically plants.
These are such great points to bring up, and I know it's been a really active conversation among many experts about how to walk the talk. So some of our closest colleagues at the National Park Service, for example, they're in the Climate Change Response Program, and they've recently, as a division, they've made the decision to prioritize. Sorry, there's a bunch of dogs running around behind me here. They made the decision to prioritize virtual training and to not fly for almost any reason for work-related purposes. So when we have them present, it's virtual. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you might have noticed earlier that I said one of the main things that we provide is in-person climate training, which does mean flights. So one way that we're trying to reduce that is by having regionally targeted courses where we may be flying in, but we're working with local partners and we're drawing participants from the local area, including presenters like from local universities and more when we can. But there is still of course, a significant carbon impact from us flying. We've been looking at our evaluations, and we still find that the in-person engagement makes a really big difference. But that is something that we're actively discussing as a team.
Thank you so much for that, Genevieve. Okay, I'm going to end the poll because we've gotten some great results there. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we're going to move on to Claire Bradshaw, our second speaker. And please continue the discussion and the great comments in the chat, and we will leave some room at the end for discussion and Q&A and wrap up. So Claire, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. As you can tell from my accent, yes, I am in the United Kingdom. I'm quite some distance away from most of you, I guess. I'm just going to share my screen to talk about a project that I started about 6 months ago. So always share the right screen. That's always helpful. Okay, so can everybody see what I am showing? That's good. Okay, good to go. Excellent. Okay, so my name's Claire Bradshaw. Yes, I am an instructional designer and e-learning developer. And I started this project about 6 months ago. And so I was going to kick it off and we'll see what happens. So, okay. So today I was an part a pretty basic question. And I'm thinking about a broad picture here. So typically an astronaut, a physicist, an engineer, a mathematician. These are sort of names or faces that come to mind when people think about these. And I wanted to ask people what do they have in common? And I know from having spoken to a lot of people about the first thing that kind of comes up for a lot of them. And actually, in fact, they're all well known. These are all well-known names: Armstrong, Einstein, Musk, and Turing. So well known that you don't even have to know their full name. It's just their surname and away you go. So, but who do women and girls have to inspire them? And if a girl or a woman has been told they can't, who can they look to say they can? And so, for example, an astronaut, a physicist, an engineer, and a mathematician. And for me is, what do they have in common? And again, the typical answer could be, well, it's their gender, but for me it's that they're not well known. These are not names that roll off the tongue. And yet they are extremely important women in their fields. This quote by Kamala Harris was, which is really famous, whatever, but parts of it really stood out for me. Was the first woman in this office, every little girl watching tonight, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. And it's that idea of being seen that's really important to me, and one of the reasons why I started this project. So the Successful Women in STEM photo book project, bit of a mouthful. What is it about? It's about 70 plus women from around the world. It contains women from multiple backgrounds: single, married, young, retired, with children, without, women of color, LGBTQIA+, holding down 2 jobs, a whole range of women. And I'm asking them to tell their stories of their success in STEM and space sciences to inspire women and girls that they have a place as well. So what does it need? What is it I'm asking for? Well, funding, it's something that I've worked out. It's going to be crowdfunded. Backing, we're self-managing, it's self-running, self-maintaining. And does it need a publisher? No publisher is required. We're going to take it straight from a Kickstarter to a printer. And I have support and people who've done several Kickstarters before that know how to run this sort of thing. So what does it need? What am I asking for? It needs more women's stories of success in STEM. And this is what I'm asking for. This is why I'm here. If you want to be involved, or you know of anybody who might want to be involved, please reach out. And this applies to women on the call. This applies also to allies as well. There's hopefully going to be women who want to be involved in this, to be able to show their story, become seen to women and girls who will read the book. Who is already involved? Now, like I said, this has only been running for about 6 months, around about the end of August last year, and it got going with a few of us talking about it. And now I'm in a conversation with you all at NASA. So it's gone quite some distance. There are these people involved. So there are women from ESA, there are astronomers, JPL, Airbus, astrobiologists, Arianespace, astrophotographers, a whole range of women already involved, already have signed up and have sent in their content in, and even more. So this is just a selection of those women involved. They're from all over the world in different jobs, in different environments, doing different things. And it's just the fact that they are involved in STEM and space sciences. So what will this book do? What is its aim? I want it to normalize the idea that women are in the same roles, doing the same jobs, being a part of STEM and the space community, which are also from multiple and varied backgrounds. I set out the idea that if I can just change one mind, one woman's mind or one girl's mind who's been put off from space sciences or from STEM, has been told it's not for you, this isn't for you, this isn't what women and girls do. If I can change just one mind, then all of this has been worth it. I will count that as a success. So if you're interested in joining, what is required? What is the call to action? And it's just this, a portrait image of yourself, one or more images that you're most proud of in your field, a message about you to the audience, who you are, what you do, your success. And the limitations are that you're a woman in STEM, or you know someone who might be, a woman might be involved, want to be involved. And that's it. Sorry, a little over time, but if you're interested, contact me on my email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Claire. Okay, with a few minutes left to go in our hour, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we're going to fast track things a bit. I'm going to share the last screen that I had mentioned while we do the survey, Hillary, if that's okay. I had a sort of a Q&A and wrap-up slide that I'm going to share. And while that slide is up, let's go ahead and launch Claire's poll. And while folks are finalizing this poll, I will say, if you all need to go, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. This will be recorded and sent out when it's ready. Please, whoops, that's not the last slide. Let me find the last slide. Nope, that's not it either. That's the slide. Get in touch with me if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, ideas. There is a QR code to our Slack channel. Join the discussion on Slack. And if you are able to stick around for a few minutes, we would love to do a wrap up and a Q&A. So if anyone has any wrap up thoughts to share, go ahead. And for those of you who need to go, see you next time. Thank you so much. We'll meet again in about a month.